Thanks for staying with us. We'll move to our first hot topic. Nigeria's Dangote Refinery has begun supplying significant quantities of jet fuel to the United States, helping meet a surge in U.S. jet fuel demand, which reached a two-year high in March. The refinery's exports, totaling around 1.7 million barrels this month, are expected to lower jet fuel prices ahead of the summer travel season. The 650,000 barrels per day Dangote Refinery is becoming a key player in global fuel trade, challenging U.S. domestic producers. Its success in gasoline exports to Europe, combined with its recent jet fuel shipments to the U.S., positions it as a potential new supplier in the Atlantic basin. This increase in supply from Dangote has driven up storage demand in U.S. markets, likely contributing to a drop in jet fuel prices. However, analysts cautioned that economic factors such as stock market declines and reduced customer confidence and could dampen air travel despite lower fuel costs. Our guest this morning is Mr. Nick Agule, an energy expert. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning to all our viewers globally.
Okay, now Dangote has become a global player as it is, supplying jet fuel to U.S., and this is expected to lower the prices of jet fuel in the U.S. for the U.S. as they're preparing for this season where everybody likes to travel in the U.S. I'd like you to comment on the fact that Dangote Refinery has entered the global market and what that means to the local market.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Nyamgo, for this question. It's great news for Nigeria. It's great news for Dangote Refinery. And for me, I believe that this positive news is exactly what we need to encourage other investors to also take advantage of the opportunities that are in our midstream and downstream petroleum sector, because at 650,000 barrels per day, Dangote Refinery has capacity to supply more than what Nigeria needs in terms of petroleum products, especially for Jet A1, which is the aviation fuel. Nigeria is not even having any aviation industry that can take even 5% of Dangote's capacity. Why do I say so? If you recall, a few days ago, the Heathrow Airport, that's a single airport in the UK, even though it's the largest airport in the busiest airport in the UK, but knowing that UK has other airports, because London alone has got 5 airports, commercial airports. But just Heathrow Airport alone, they had a power cut, and it was said that over 1,300 flights were cancelled. Imagine the number of flights that were cancelled in a day. When I arrived at Abuja Airport last week, I snapped a picture of the total flights that Abuja Airport was going to run, the total international flights that Abuja Airport was going to run on that day. Mr. Nyambu, do you know there are less than 10? Less than 10 flights, international flights, out of the federal capital of the country. Even if you go to Lagos, I can assure you there is less than 50 flights, international flights. But another airport lost 1,300 plus flights. So you can see that the Nigerian aviation sector is not developed. Many Nigerians have never boarded a plane. In my mind, I think that maybe less than 10% of Nigerians have ever been on a flight, because our income levels are so small that we cannot afford flights. Whereas elsewhere, anybody working, even if you're minimum wage, you can fly. You know, like if minimum wage in the UK, for instance, about $2,000, and you can get a flight for £50. It depends on where you book or where you are going. So that way, many people can fly. In Nigeria, we are not flying. So Dangote Refinery's petroleum products, especially Jet A1, cannot be for the Nigerian market. It simply has to find an international market and sell its products. So the other day we heard that they had a shipment of products to Saudi Arabia, to Saudi Aramco, which is the national oil company of Saudi Arabia. And now we have this shipment to the United States. But by and large, this is not nothing new in the oil industry. because that United States, they are producing 13 million barrels of crude oil per day. 13 million barrels. That means they are producing perhaps close to 1,000% more oil than Nigeria is producing. Yet they are still importing crude oil. Yet they are still exporting crude oil. Yet they are refining crude oil. They have one of the largest refining capacities in the world. Yet they are exporting refined products, yet they are importing refined products. So that is the nature of the oil and gas industry. It runs across borders. It doesn't mean that if you have a refinery, you can only consume from what that your refinery is refining for you. You can still import, you can still export both crude oil and refined products. It depends on who owns it and in which market they want to place it. So it's good that Dangote Refinery has now placed Nigeria back on the map of the midstream and downstream petroleum sector, and we're starting to play in these sectors. And that is the best for our economy. And I hope other investors are watching and they can now come into this sector, which has been underfunded and undercapitalized and underserved for a long time in the past.
For specifics, do you say that, what do you say the impact, the direct impact will be to our economy, just like you've just said, that's good for our economy? Good in what regard specifically?
Okay, so the first specific point that this is good for us is that Dangote Refinery is a business that has been set up and is operating in Nigeria. So as we speak today, there are Nigerians who are in Dangote Refinery who are working. If the refinery weren't there, they will be at home or they will be doing some other less well-paying jobs. But today, as we speak, thousands of Nigerians are in that refinery. And there are subsidiary jobs to that. That is indirect jobs that refinery has created. A lot of demand in terms of the logistics of moving these petroleum products. Because this cargo of Jet A1 that has gone to the US must have gone with a ship. And the ship sailed into our waters. It paid taxes to Nigerian government, to NIMASA, to NPA, and he had perhaps security cover. That's all monies coming into Nigeria. And then, of course, Dangote sold the products. They made a profit upon which they will pay taxes to the Nigerian government. And, of course, Dangote Refinery has earned dollars, which will improve the dollar inflow into the Nigerian economy. The more dollar inflow we have in the Nigerian economy, the stronger the Naira will gain strength. Even though, of course, I put out an article the other day to say that who benefits if the Naira is strong, actually, because we are so much import dependent. If we're not so much import dependent, then the strong Naira hurts us because it makes our products to be more expensive, and then, of course, it makes our products to be cheaper. If the Naira is strong, it makes our products more expensive because people, if you bring in $1,000, you get only 1,000 Naira. Assuming it is 1-to-1. But if Naira is weak, you bring in $1,000 as it is now, you get 1.5 million to do business in Nigeria. So it should attract us. But the only problem is that we are not producing enough. We're simply not producing enough. So Dangote has come into the productive sector of Nigeria, the real sector in Nigeria. And that is why we should give him all the support that he needs.
Yeah, but what about the aviation industry in Nigeria? Even though you say it doesn't have the even 5% capacity to take what Dangote is giving, now he's exporting to U.S. and one of the things in that report was that it's going to crash the Jet A fuel prices in the U.S. What will be responsible for crashing our own Jet A prices that will also lead to maybe reduced transport fare, airfare in Nigeria?
I don't think that is accurate. I don't think it's accurate. It doesn't seem to be, that assertion doesn't seem to be backed with data because as we speak today, the U.S. refining capacity is 18 million barrels of crude oil per day. 18 million. So if you ask yourself, if a country is refining 18 million barrels of crude oil and another refinery is refining less than 1,650,000 barrels, how much can that 650,000 barrels refinery do in terms of impacting on the prices in that economy of 18 million barrels refining capacity? I don't think it's going to be that much. And Dangote is not stupid. If he knows that Jet A1 per liter, let's say, is selling for I don't know the actual Platts price as I'm speaking. I'm not giving an example, because if Dangote knows that a liter of Jet A1 is selling for, say, $1 today, he will not go and sell his own at 60 cents or 70 cents. If at all, he will probably just sell it at 98 cents. He will punch the market as much as possible to try and take the revenue. So I don't think Dangote has capacity to enter a price war with U.S. refiners, given that the refining capacity of the U.S. is almost 20 times that of Dangote Refinery alone. But in any case, at whatever price that Dangote lands his products in the U.S., if he makes him a profit, then he's in good business. And I believe that he's going to take advantage of that.
What about in Nigeria? I was also asking, that was the second part of my question. What will happen? What needs to happen so that our own price of Jet A, because he has that capacity at least back home in Nigeria, what can happen or should happen to make sure our own prices go down and then airfares go down as well?
Okay, so basically what should happen is for Dangote Refinery to put products in the market, that is Jet A1 specifically in the market, at a price that is cheaper than the imported products. If he is able to do that, then the cost of Jet A1 will come down, and that should be transferred into the prices of tickets to make it easier for people to move about. But whether that is going to happen, it depends. There's a lot of issues and a lot of games that are going on in the petroleum industry, especially with the NNPCL, a behemoth in the mix, where we don't really know what they are doing, a very opaque organization. But if Dangote can compete against the imported products, then of course they can take the market. And that's what I expect them to do. I expect them to use pricing to take the market from the importers. And if they're able to do that, it's also good for our economy. It then means that we don't need to be importing products again. We don't need to be shopping for dollars to import petroleum products. We are actually consuming what we are producing, and it's going to be a better deal for our economy.
So does this put to rest the fact or the quality of Dangote products? Because we've been hearing this back and forth, and NPCL saying their products are good, they are the same as Dangote. Dangote's products are not even as good. In some places, rumors would be that Dangote products are not so good and all that. But now that he has entered the U.S. market, it kind of shows that if it can be accepted by the U.S., it means it's good enough. So does it put to rest the issue of quality of what comes out from Dangote Refinery?
I think there's something about the NNPCL which a lot of Nigerians may not even understand. The NNPCL is not a regulator of the oil industry. It doesn't regulate the upstream, neither does it regulate the downstream. The upstream is regulated by a body known as the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, and the downstream, the midstream and downstream, is being regulated by a body known as the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. These are the bodies that are expected to make statements regarding the quality of petroleum products. Dangote is a direct competitor to the NNPCL. Dangote is a company that is in the midstream refining petroleum products. The NNPCL is also a company, it's an operator. Even though it's owned by the government, sometimes it tries to arrogate onto itself regulatory powers. Of what basis does NNPCL can make a statement about Dangote Refinery's quality of products? It's like a Coca-Cola making a statement on Pepsi's products. This is the relationship between NNPCL and Dangote Refinery, or UBA making a statement on Zenith Bank. A lot of Nigerians don't understand that. That is what the NNPCL is. It's actually a business that is meant to be delivering profits to us, just like the NLMG is doing. But they are not even doing it. They should feel ashamed of themselves that this same refinery that they are commenting on, they have 4 refineries that have been dead for so long, and Dangote is proving to them that no, you can refine. Refinery is a science, it's a technical thing. If you set up the infrastructure properly and you introduce crude oil, you are going to get petroleum products. That's how easy and simple it is. And yet the NNPCL can't do that. They have brought us to this point where we are now, where we depended on imported products, suffering long periods of fuel scarcity and all of that. And they are not ashamed of themselves. They should be apologizing to Nigerians for the long years of suffering they have put us through. And even as we speak today, they have refineries that aren't producing anything at all, 0 barrels of crude oil they are refining, yet they are paying staff salaries, running into the hundreds of billions of dollars, of naira of cost that being taken, money being taken from our treasury. The NNPCL should go and sit down.
Okay, so I'm glad that you see the positives in this, and Nigerians will be happy if this is sustained, and Dangote continues this transaction and brings in the needed dollars. So if you were just to advise the Nigerian power sector or the Nigerian oil sector, what would your advice be at this point that we have entered the global market courtesy of Dangote?
If I were to advise or put any advice to the Nigerian government regarding the oil sector, I will start with the upstream. We are not producing enough crude oil, and that is why Dangote himself is not getting enough crude oil feedstock for his refinery, and is having to go all over the world to get crude oil feedstock. We have 36 billion barrels of crude oil in the ground. 36 billion barrels, that's a lot of crude oil in the ground. And we're not extracting it enough, right? And the US that we're talking about, they are extracting 13 million barrels per day. The likes of Russia is extracting at 9 million barrels per day. The same with Saudi Arabia. Iran is extracting about 6 million, 7 million barrels per day. Nigeria is just doing 1 billion plus barrels per day. We are leaving this crude oil in the ground, wasting there, instead of unlocking it and using the money to develop Nigeria. What is President Tinubu doing? President Tinubu should know that Nigeria produced 2.5 million barrels of crude oil before. That means the infrastructure to produce that is there. Why can't he just call someone? I said it the other day. Why can't President Tinubu just call a one-day summit of the oil industry in his office and ask the operators in the sector to say, what can I do as your president to return Nigeria to 2.5 million barrels that will have the infrastructure to produce? And then we can get ourselves to producing 2.5 million barrels whilst we attract more investment into the sector. Nigeria should be a country that is producing 5 million, 6 million, 7 million barrels of crude oil per day. Imagine now, Nyamgo, that Nigeria is producing 5 million barrels. How much money will we have? That is when we will now start developing our economies to outlive the oil era. In case oil now becomes irrelevant, like coal is irrelevant now, we can still have economies that can outlive the oil era. That is what the Gulf states are doing. So if you go to the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar, all of these countries, they are extracting petroleum, crude oil and gas at fast pace, using it to develop their economies. And look at for us, we have agriculture, plenty of land with good climate and the labor force to do. Assuming we're extracting 5 million barrels and we use it to cultivate the entirety of Nigeria, even if oil becomes of zero value, our agriculture will still be feeding the world, and we go there, carpet, nothing will worry us. So that is the first advice I will put. And of course, the second advice is that for midstream, President Tinubu should simply do something about our 4 refineries. He's about to be 2 years in office, and he hasn't done something about it. And then, of course, with the downstream, I will say that we need to develop logistics for moving petroleum products. We have pipelines crisscrossing Nigeria all over the place. President Tinubu should look into transferring these pipelines away from the NNPCL, who has shown incapacity to manage them, to the private sector, so that petroleum products move with pipelines. If they move with pipelines, they will run cheaper. Like I'm in Abuja here. If the petrol that is supplied to Abuja came through a pipeline from Dangote Refinery to Abuja, it would be far cheaper than putting that petrol in a truck, trucking it all the way from Lagos. And that truck is still consuming petroleum products. And that truck is posing danger on the road, causing fires all over the place. That would be the advice that I also give to the president. So I'm giving him advice for upstream, increase output to about 5 million barrels in about 5 to 10 years. But for the immediate time, increase output to 2.5 million barrels that we produced before. For midstream, let him deal with the refineries that are moribund. And then, of course, for the downstream, let him deal with the logistics of moving petroleum products about.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Agule, for coming on the show today and sharing your thoughts. As always, it was a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much, and have a nice day.
You too. Okay, we've been talking with Mr. Nick Agule, energy expert, and we're looking at the fact that Dangote Refinery has begun exporting jet A fuel to the U.S. market and how that impact will be on the U.S. market and the Nigerian market. We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll be looking at improving mental health services in Nigeria. Stay with us.